Good morning. We're holding now in Torah the Chof Daled, new Parshas Vayishlach. In the beginning of Parshas Vayishlach, the Torah tells over how Yaakov sends messengers to Esav, and he finally wants to make peace with Esav. He wants to put aside all his conflict, and before actually meeting Esav, he finds out that Esav is going after him, and he has 400 men with him. So he tells Esav, he tells the Malachim, go before my brother Esav and just try to calm him down. So the pasuk says, Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim lefanav al Esav achiv. Yaakov sends messengers to Esav, his brothers. So the Rabbi says in Yidua, it's known sheYaakov shorshu mibchinas Shem Ma. It's known that Yaakov comes from the source of Shem Ma, of the level of the Olam of the world of Tikkun. We explained in a few weeks ago that there's four ways to spell Yud Kei Vav Kei. One of the ways to spell Yud Kei Vav Kei is the numerical value of that will be 45. So it's different. It shows on different levels of Havaya. There's different ways of how it's revealed. Yaakov comes from the source of Shem Ma in the level of Tayu, in the Elam of Tayu. And the root of Esav is from the world of Tayu. So Yaakov comes from Tikkun, and Esav comes from Tayu. And the light of Tayu is very great. And Tayu is not able to enclose in the vessel of Kalim. So tell you what happened, as we explained a few times, that before the level of the world of Tikkun, there was a level called Tohu. And in Tohu, there's a lot of light, but the Kalim, the vessels, are not able to handle that light. So what happened? There was a Shviras HaKalim. It shattered, and Hashem had to bring back the world through Tikkun. So Yaakov, his source comes from the level of Tikkun. Esav, his source comes from the level of Tayu, and we know in Tayu the light is very great, and this light, since it's so dominant, it's not able to enclose itself in Kalim. When the Stalkum Kalim, and the light is removed from the Kalim, and it's only in an encompassing level. And what happened? The Kalim broke and fell down below. So therefore, the way we look at in this world, since the Iris and the Kalim were not able to get along, and there was a Shviras HaKalim, and these Kalim came crashing down into this world, so it looks like Esav is a Rasha. But if you look at the source of the level of the encompassing level of Tayu, the light of Tikkun of Tayu is higher than Tikkun. When she's brother, come on, Beses Hashem, like the Rebbe says, I'm going to explain soon in Dibra Maskal Igach Manabba. The Pashas told us like the Rebbe says, like I explained in Parshas Teldes in Dibra Masel the Eide Echbeni. So Yaakov, even though Bechitzenius, when you think of Yaakov and Esav, Yaakov is the tzaddik, Esav is a Rasha, and Yaakov is higher. But in the sources, if you look at the Shadish of where they come from, since Esav comes from the Shadish, his Shadish is Tayu. Tayu really is higher than Tikkun. Yaakov Choshav. So what did Yaakov want to do? Yaakov thought Esav is bar kvar. Yaakov thought that after all these years, Esav is already refined. And he thought that after all these years, Esav finally worked on himself, and he wanted to tap into the source, to the very high source of Tayu, in the level of Makifim, which comes before Tikkun. So therefore, what did he do? Therefore, Shalach Yaakov Malachim Lefanov, it says that he sent Malachim Lefanov. The fun of mamish. I knew, what does that mean? So he sent it. He wanted to tap into the source of Esav the way he is before he comes down. El Esav Ochiv Seida, which is Malkin Katmoyi. This is the level of the supernal kings, the Tohu of the level of Koyo Prinas Makifim Canal. Why? He wanted to tap into the source of Makifim of Tohu in order to draw down into Tikkun. Shuprinas, it is Peil Yor Makifim V'yischadu Yachad. He wanted to bring down the level of Tayu in the that it should be mayor. The Makif level should be mayor where Bipnimis. Therefore, Tziva Isam, what did he say to the Malachim? This is what you should say to my master Esav. What should you tell him? In love and Garti, with love and I lived. And what did he say? He told him, you should tell the Malachim, I have oxen and camels. The Hainu, what does that mean? Shediu, he's informing Esav, Shekar Nigmar, Benishlam, Kol Seder, Hatikun, Datzilus, Betachas Hashlemus. That Yaakov is telling Esav, I already refined all my level of Tikkun, I already refined in the complete refinement. He called all the levels of Olam Atzilus, which is the level of shade, the Chamor, Tzayin, Ve'ever, V'shivcha, Kulam Nisbadu, and the Takno Ayidei Shema. That all these levels in Atzilus of shade, Chamor, Tzayin, Ve'ever, V'shivcha, I all refine them through the level of Shema. Zeo Vayili Chuli. So then he says like this. He says, why? How was I able to refine this? Because Shim Lovan Garti. Because I lived with Lovan. The famous question is, why is he telling Esav in Lovan Garti? What does Esav care? So the Rebbe explains, Pirush, Chinas Loivin Elyin, that Lovan comes from the level of Loivin Elyin. Shemisham Hayikir Koyach Hashefa LeYaakov. Over there was the most powerful force came to Yaakov. Tzilus, the Var L'Sakin Hakel, the Kivin Shekvar Nigmar, V'Nishlam Melachas Hatikin, B'Shleimos. So now Yaakov says, now that I completed through Lev and Elyon, I was able to complete and refine all the level of Atzilus. So now I'm able to bring down and draw down the level of Makifim Detail. Because if Atzilus was not completely fixed, so then the level of Makifim, the level of Makif of Tayu will not be able to reside. When Shekosov is there, like it says in the Zayar, the Leis Berchosa Shayir Ba'asar Kinaya, that the bracha, the Shechina, does not rest in an empty place. Ella Ba'asar Shalom, but only in a complete place. Al Asho, but now Shnigmar Hatikim Betachlus, but now that Yaakov is saying that I was able to refine the level of Atzilus, all the levels of Atzilus in a complete manner, as Asar Shalom. So now it's a complete place. Now we could draw down the levels of Makifim Malyenim into Tikkun. Therefore, what did he do? He told the Malachim, he sent them that he told the Malachim, take all these gifts and bring it to Esav in order to find favor in his eyes. The Hainu, what does that mean? That you, Esav, should shine your level of Makif on me in Tikkun. And this is what it means to find favor. The Hainu, so Yaakov is just expressing. He's saying there's a whole spiritual thing going on over here. Yaakov is the level of Tikkun, the level of Shema of Tikkun. Yaakov understands that in order for him to get to the highest level, there needs to be a merge of Tohu and Tikkun. Tikkun cannot stay by itself, and Tohu can't stay by itself. So what did he do? Vayishlach Yaakov malachim, the fun of that Yaakov says, Esav, I know that when you come down over here, the way you look, you're a Russia. But the source, if I tap into the source of you, I'm going to be able to get the highest level of Tohu. So he told the malachim, tell him, what was he telling him? He was saying that tell him that I already refined all the levels of Tikkun. And therefore, I want to tap into your source in order to bring down your levels into me. But he told him, he says that first, I'm just telling you that I already transformed everything from Chashechel Nehed of Ilamat Tikkun. Therefore, I am fitting to find favor in your eyes to get this bracha of the love of Makifim. That's why we explained a few times that the famous question everybody asks, what, Yitzchak didn't know that Esav was a Rasha? Yitzchak knew that he was a Rasha. What was he thinking? So Chassidus explains that Yitzchak is the level of Gvura. Esav was the level of Tohu. Yaakov felt that if he's able to tap into the sources of Yitzchak felt that if he's able to tap into the sources of Esav, and he's able to actually get a hold of him and work with him, then he's able to really bring him to even a higher level than Yaakov. The only thing is that Yitzchak had to go through Yaakov, had to go through the level of Shema of Tikkun. But now that Shema of Tikkun was refined, and how was it refined? In Love and Garti, by being with Love and Lev and Elyon, by attaining all these high levels, then now he's able to limtzachein in Esav's eyes. Okay, so we'll see the next member. Why was he scared of him? And yeah. So now what happened? So the Malachim came back and said, so we came to your brother Esav, and you should know, he's going to call you, he's also going after you. And he has 400 men with him. Pidish, what does that mean? What were the Malachim responding? Even though that mitzad you, even though Taki, you're right, at the level of Tayu is able that mitzidcha you Yaakov, you're ready to draw down the level of Makav to Tayu. Now that you, after all these years, actually refine the level of Tikkun in a complete manner, what should we do? That what's holding back this merge between Tohu and Tikkun, this is Esav. That he's still in the lower level, where the Shvir Sakelim will in his bara dayan klal, and his level was not refined whatsoever. If so, how is it possible for the source of Makav Tetehu to be to come down in the level of Tikkun if he himself didn't refine his levels? In other words, Yaakov was sure that after all these years, Esav for sure refined it. Yaakov said, if all these years I worked on myself and I'm able to refine myself, so the Pashtus Esav did the same thing. So the Malachim said, no, you're wrong. He is still at level, he's still in level 1. He didn't even start working on himself. And the Malachim said, what's our proof that he's still in the level of Shvira? Because he's still going after you, and he has 400 men. So he explains, what does that mean? Alpi Pnimius Pidish, Dalid Meis Ish, these 400 men, and Dinim Kashim, they are severe laws, Shalachitzenium of the external, and Mshachim Mites Bati Dinim Kashim, the Mishtachin, which come from the 400 judgments, harsh judgments. Like it says in Ed Rabbah. In other words, like this. These 400 men, what he's saying is that the there's chitzenius and then there's pneumius. Obviously, the Eibishter b'pneumius wants, like a father and son, wants the good for his son. But b'chitzenius, the way the Eibishter set things up, l'maylo, there's something called 400. There's like 400 bate dinin, 400 different beis-dins, and they have difficult and harsh laws. So what he was saying is these 400 men, the 400 come from the level of are the level of dinim kashim, are harsh laws, which come from the 400 dinim kashim misdachen. And he says like it's known that the source of these 400 men that were with Esav, so he says like this. He says that the 400 men that were with Esav where was their source? Came from the 400 golden coins that Avram gave Ephraim. Through that, created the Arba Meisish. How is that possible? So Chassidus explains, because Avram level of chesed, but he was too much chesed. When somebody has too much chesed, it's shaykh that there could be also people take advantage. There could be unikas achitzenium. So because Avram had too much chesed, what came out was that these 400 men, in other words, he gave koyach to Ephraim, and through giving koyach to the clip of Ephraim, through that was able to create these 400 men. So the Rebbe continues and says, Shadal mei shekel now, these 400 golden coins came tough am in the ksufin. They are the 400 levels. These 400 levels, Dirosi, Tzadikai Alma, Da'osi, the 400 levels of the Tzadikim are going to get, Ta'ainush, Pchinas, Eres Shefa, Enig that they're a very high level of Enig Elyon, Amshach, Pchinas Atika Kadisha, which come from the level of Atik, Shu Pchinas Mutza, which we know that Atik is a intermediary. In Atzmas Erin Seif Leila Matzilus, how do you get from Atzmas Erin Seif to Atzilus? This is through the level of Atik, which is intermediary. As we know that Keser is intermediary between the Matzel, the emanator, and the emanations. And through the level of Atik, you're able to draw down the level of Enig Elyon for Tzadikim when Mashiach comes. And this is the level of the 400 worlds. And this is the 400 shekel that Avram gave Ephraim. What do we call it? We call the coins that there says which means it was a currency that every single nationality, every country accepted. So he says, what does that mean? Keser is called, like a seicher means like a merchant. What does a merchant do? He goes around and around and around. So he says that Keser, just like a merchant goes around and around, Keser also is like around. The Gashmi is a Keser goes on someone's head, and also Keser like floats on top of all the spheres.
Is it like the opposite of going around and around?
The one that it's stationary.
When we were saying turn around and around before Seicher, we were talking about someone who goes throughout the entire world, not someone who floats above the entire world.
Right, but he's just trying to bring out that it's not he's not subject to one place. He's like above everything. He explains. Like he says that Keser is like encompassing all of Seder Shtalshlus. The Tov Am Dichsufin, this level of the 400 Am Dichsufin, what does it mean? That it's nimshach from the level of Atzmas and Sev. Gam Ma'keser, even nimshach and Ma'keser misham nehidlan tzadikayo la'asulav. It goes from the level of Keser, and it is given for the tzadikim la'asulav. Inyan hanesin la'Ephraim, and this that Avram Avinu gave Ephraim hayibdech in yididus habirudim. This was he wanted to refine. So what was Avram Avinu trying to do? Avram Avinu thought that I'm going to give these 400 coins. In other words, I'm going to take Ephraim, I'm going to refine him. The problem is that it wasn't done properly. So because Avraham Avinu had too much chesed, he wasn't able to refine Ephraim properly. So what came out through that, there was a Yinikas HaChitzenim, and what came out that these 400 men were like Esav's Chassidim. Now, so he says, "V'hu b'chinas sak." This is the level of sak. Sak is b'gematria how much?
400.
400. Very good. So sak 400. This is like the 400 men. Sackcloth. When she goes to albus shamayim k'teides, I'm going to place these the sackcloths. Sak osim ksusim. V'chein amar Razal atir chegeg sak. Dahainu. That what came out is that there's like the sackcloth that the chitzenis could take from. And when Mashiach comes and all the tumah is going to be taken away, Ephraim eventually is going to give back the money, which means that the shadish of the kedusha will be refined. B'shleimus. Now, Omati Yad Yaakov Sheshvile Esim Meshershes Hamakiv the Teu. Asher Muvakish Ma'achashu Batzman Lamata. So now Yaakov says, okay, it's impossible for the levels of Teu to be refined through Esav because Esav is not holding at the highest level. He didn't do any work on himself. Yaakov knows he needs to have a merge of Atzilus and Tohu and Tikkun together. He says that there's no better candidate to have this correlation between the two than Esav. But the Malachim come back and say that no, he still has this Arba Meis Ish, he still has this tough almond of Chitzenis, Nikas HaChitzenim, which basically he didn't work on himself, and not only he didn't work on himself, he's the same Russia, and you're basically stuck. You're on your own. So Yaakov said, "Okay, but I have to get to the level of I need this level of the Makav of Teu." Therefore, when he knew that he has to draw down this level, he had to draw down the level of Mayim Nukvin. So he had to first draw down. He had to be Mila the Mayim Nukvim in order to draw down the Makiv, as we know. One spirit brings another spirit. And this is what Yaakov sent gifts to Esav. He wanted to be Mila, Mayim Nukvim. So what did he do? He sent gifts. What does it mean he sent gifts? Which means that the level of man had to arouse to be mamshech the level of mad, Mayim Tkurim, in order to be makif the Teu. Therefore, Shalach Gemalim, he sent camels, even though that we know camels are behemoth tameis. What's the such So basically, what we explained in the second mimer is the Vayishuva Malachim, that Malachim came back and basically said that Esav still has his 400 meis Yishima. He said that basically we know that you want to be Mamshech and you want to tap into the levels of Teu, but Esav is basically not ready for that. So therefore, what did he do? He tapped in, he sent them gifts. What does it mean he's sending him gifts? He wanted to arouse Mayim Nukvim, to be Mamshech, Mayim Dekurim, and that's why he sent them Gemalim. In order that he should be able to draw down the level of Teu into Tikkun. Okay, have a good day.
He got scared after when he found out that he can't survive.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
He wasn't scared before.